Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Wednesday, the 12th of November. Actually, I went out and I sat yesterday morning. I saw a window. My son saw, I think, a crotch horn that he let pass, and then he sat last night and he had a couple smaller bucks out there, but nothing that we deem shootable. I mean, we're not trophy hunters by any sense, but we also like venison. So why shoot a small one when you can take a bigger one, which is an older one, and get more meat? And usually with the older ones, you're talking 4.5 to 5.5, which they're going to be carrying a good set of antlers most often. But what are we talking about today? We're going to talk about what you brought up, Mark, of how can you steal customers' business and how do you deal with competitors. And probably my response is going to surprise you because you can't compare yourself to other shops because it's just going to ruin your day. Hang tight. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Wednesday, the 12th of November, 2025. So, what am I really talking about today? I'm talking about you can, why people do this is beyond me. And I'll be honest with you, probably years and years ago, I tried doing the same thing and it just never worked. And that is trying to compare yourself to other shops, trying to take their customers away. And if that's the business model that you want to have, then I think you're destined to fail. I do. You need to spend more time on forward progress and in what you're doing. If you have a competitor that has got a yard full of stuff that he's working on or she's working on, and you're hearing crickets, and you're trying to compare yourself to that shop and trying to figure out what you can do that that shop is doing to get more customers, you're just going to spin in circles, if that makes any sense. What I'm trying to say is that most of the time when you're comparing yourself to another shop, you have no clue what's going on the back end. I've seen some really, really nice shops. I've seen floor planning galore. And I've seen business just shuffling in and out like, crazy. But in the end, they were so far in debt, they would never make it out. And they weren't even getting enough money, making enough money per month to cover just the basics. It looks pretty from the outside, and you're thinking, wow, they must be really doing a good stroke of business. But you have no clue what's going on within that business and that business structure. And what I've tried to instill into you guys that are starting out is make your competitors your friends. That's one of the top, like the 10 commandments. That's right around 3 or 4. And why do I say that? Because if they like you and you can do a reciprocal, you don't want to set up a relationship where you're sucking them dry and bothering them all the time, asking them how to do this and how to do that. And because you will drive them nuts and they'll put you on the block list of you can't text to them anymore. No, it's you have to find your own way. I think Amos said it best with his business. If you really want to see what can happen, you take a highly successful business with one person at the head of the business. Same thing with Jason and his business. Same thing with Ed with the real estate. You've got the head of that business and the business is doing well. What happens when that owner steps down or sells out? You would think it's a highly functioning and running perfectly machine. Why frig with it? Just keep doing whatever it's doing if it's a moneymaker. But you get a new partner, or you get a new owner, or you get a group that's owning it, a corporation of some kind. And the first thing they want to do is they want to fix it to make it more efficient. Get rid of all the crapola, as you were saying, Amos, all those machines that were ready to roll if they needed backups because you bought them and repaired them. They looked at it as junk, and the customers were the same way. You, Amos, had good customers. You had certain standards that you held yourself to. Same thing with you, Jason, Ed, Randy. Once the head of the business changes, most often the case, unless the person that's taking over, let's say a foreman, supervisor for that company, takes over and has been really close with the owner and knows and has watched and has mentored that person taking over. That's more of a smoother transition, right? Because they already know what works. They've been in there for the past 20 years doing what they can to make that work. Whereas somebody that is looking from the inside, they're looking at, okay, it's a moneymaker, let's buy it, and we'll put it on our list of businesses that we own that's going to make us gazillions. That's not how it happens. Corporations are the worst because you got so many people involved. In order to change anything, it takes the act of God, basically, to get it approved. So my first rule of thought, 10 Commandments, take your competitors and make them your friends. Why is that? Because if they like you, they will point out certain things. And that is customers to stay away from. Things that don't work, that they've already tried, if you're open to it, which a lot of people aren't. If you're a person that is trying to start a business, kind of headstrong to start with, and you're thinking, well, that person doesn't know anything, I can do it better, I'm different. Possibly, but chances are it's been done and it don't work. I would never try to steal somebody's customers. Never. And I would never compare myself to another shop. Why is that? Because that shop could be running 20 years and and they're treating their customers well. There's not too much you can do to get their customers to come over to you. If you got this, competitor mentality against another shop in town, if you play that game of lowering the labor with the cost of labor, in actuality, you're going to help them out. And I know you're looking at me like, how can I be helping them out? Because you're going to steal the bottom of the barrel, the ones that are only there because of cost, because they couldn't get it cheaper somewhere else. So you're going to do that business owner a favor, because all the ones that he's been wanting to say, go pound salt, just ran to you. And you think you're doing great stroke of business, and you just started out with the worst customers of the worst. What's a better way? A better way is to sit down with your business plan, with your ideas, and figure out your own way. If I have a competitor, which is a friend, and they've got a niche market, the last thing I'm going to do is impede on their niche market. They worked hard to get that market. So why is it okay for me just to come in and take those customers by competing head to head in that niche market? And that person, the competitor / my friend, has been doing it for a number of years and really took a while to try to weed out what works and what doesn't work. That's what you have to do. If you're in business, you damn well better be in business for the long haul. If you're just getting into business to get rich quick, I can save you a lot of time, money, and tears. Don't do it. Don't do it. Go play the lottery. If you're going to be that type of a business person, that it's all or nothing and take advantage of your customers and your competitors and everybody else just to get ahead, it ain't going to work. It may in the short thing, but in the long run, it ain't going to work. You know, it reminds me of back when we were doing very strong with the parts business online. And this is another kind of along the same lines. Is certain people, and I call them lazy people, that instead of going out and finding what works for them, they kind of float around the internet looking for ways to capitalize on somebody else's success. And when I say capitalize, I mean lazy. And what we ran into about the 8th, 9th year doing business, because we started seeing competition, were my competitors taking my listing word for word, my photos, and lowering the price to try to get people to go to them. When we first started out, we were doing suggested retail, and we figured the shipping and then just said free shipping. Once we started having these guys coming on, we started seeing our sales drop a little bit. And, you know, I can remember at the time, because I was still a young whippersnapper, I said, you know what, screw you. I'm getting pricing at warehouse level. Let's see how low you can go. That's cardinal rule number 2 that you don't break, is race to the bottom. It doesn't work for anybody. I should have concentrated more on my regular customers, which I was, but not. I was trying to get rid of these, what I call a-holes, that were just lazy and having overseas employees copying all my listings word for word and putting it on their eBay sales thing. So I started dropping the price because I knew that if they were just getting into the market, they were going to be at like tier 6 or tier 7, or tier 1 in some cases, of how they set their systems up, that they would be paying pretty good retail or pretty good wholesale prices on those parts. And then the other thing that bugged me was we were selling on Amazon, and we had a lot of the OEMs there. We were doing very well on Amazon. And then I saw my sales kind of drop a little bit on the aftermarket parts. So I started looking to see who my competitor was. It was Amazon. Amazon had created an account with Stens and was selling Stens products on Amazon. What most people don't realize is Amazon themselves are sellers. So if they see something that you're selling and selling well at, guess what? They've got people, a team of people that are looking into how can we get into that market and capitalize on their success. I dropped Amazon. Once I started seeing that they were competing with me in my own fish tank, I said, you know what? If you want it, you can have it. But it goes back to, if you're going to do it right. And if you're looking for where you're turning a profit in a year, you know, unless you're a one-man band, it's probably not going to happen. And it's going to take a while to build customers. And you're going to have to find that niche market that you want instead of piggybacking off somebody else. And like I say, you know, you try to play that price game, you're probably going to help your competitors because you're going to get the bottom of the barrel feeders. And that's exactly who they want to get rid of. I've talked about it here numerous times of how you don't want a lot of customers, you want good quality customers. The ones that are willing to pay and understand the cost of doing business. You know, we had a road call yesterday morning, and we've reduced the number of road calls. And the guy's like, you guys do a lot of road calls? And Claude says, no. And he said, well, why not? I said, well, every time we go, people want to stand there and watch and then say that we were only there for a certain amount of time, and that why should they have to pay whatever it is in the end. They think, well, that was an easy fix or this or that. But we spent 2.5 hours up there, plus it was 38 miles each way. I billed the guy $200. And I said, is that fair? And he said, I used to run a business in Jersey. He said, you tell me what's fair to you. He said, 200 sounds cheap to me. And I said, well, 200 will cover our costs. I said, we could have been working on splitting the tractor, instead of being here. And Cloud went on to tell him that we've limited the road calls to just specific people that we know understand the cost of doing business, and that when two of us show up with a work truck, we're paying for gas, maintenance, two of us out of the shop, and we're there with tools to do the job. Think about that for a minute. That could be your niche market, doing mobile repairs instead of mobile services. The only problem with that is that you have to have a good understanding that a lot of times you're not going to have the parts, right? We got lucky with Gary yesterday, which was a high school friend of mine that had it there at his car mechanic shop. And it was a win-win for all of us because we didn't have to go all the way to Canton or Gouverneur another 30 miles to go get a radiator hose. But instead of trying to copy what somebody else is doing, you need to make your own path. There's going to be certain similarities, okay? But in the end, it's going to be based on you. Are you a good person? Do the customers want to come to you and help you? Are you fair with your customers and your employees? Do you do good work? And lastly, how well do you help the community? That's it. It's not going to be how cheap you are, because you're going to attract the wrong customers. It's not going to be trying to mimic what somebody else is doing. But what you don't know is they've been doing it for 10 years and they worked out all the bugs, and they're not showing you the bugs that they worked out. So you're going to find those on your own. That's why I say you never compare yourself to others, because you have no clue what's going on inside that person. How often have you tried to compare yourself to somebody else and felt like crap? What you weren't thinking is that person could be having a meltdown and putting on a good face for you because they don't want to bother you or burden you or what have you. They're putting on a good face, and you think they have it made, and in the end, they didn't. When I was battling depression in my 20s, I had what everybody thought was the world by the tail. And that is, by the time I was 20, I had my own dairy farm. I had 70 head of cows that were milking. I was working out at the mines, and we had all the nice things, but we had no time to do it. And people would compare and look at us and say, wow, I wish I was like them. What they didn't know was I was suffering from depression. So no matter what I did, it still had a skewed look to it. I never thought I was good enough. I never thought what I did was enough. That there had to be that something that solved all my problems. And I looked for, a number of years and even contemplated taking my own life. Depression is treatable. But if you were to come talk to me on the outside, I was doing great. I didn't want people to know what was going on the inside. I didn't like me. And that was a hard thing to go through, is waking up in the morning and looking in the mirror and saying, you are good enough. You're okay as long as the mirror says, no, you're not. That's the biggest problem I see with trying to compare yourself with others. And that goes with trying to run a repair shop or any type of business and compare yourself to some other business. You can't do it. You don't know what made them successful. And most often the case, it's the one that's leading the charge, okay? The employees are way up there, but the one leading the charge and the direction of that business is the one that's making that business succeed. If you take that person out, gets bought out by somebody else and put them in charge with them thinking the same, they don't have the same drive, direction, and fortitude that the prior owner had, and that business will be out of business within 10 years. 10 years. And the only reason they're going to last 10 years, they're going to start selling off everything. You still got the same employees, you still got the same equipment, you still got the same product line. Why is it not successful? Because the person leading the charge, the direction, isn't either got the respect of the employees, is deciding to do it their own way and put their own twist on it, which it might work. You never know. I've seen businesses get bought out and then all of a sudden go high. I mean, it's like you, Amos, when you bought your business. It wasn't doing that great, but once you got in there and you started making changes, what was the difference? It was the one making the changes. It wasn't the employees, the equipment. It was the one making the changes to make it a better place and had high standards. So in the comments, put what your thoughts are on trying to steal customers from your competitors. And do you think competing with them is a good thing? Because I may be wrong. I may be totally wrong. Maybe my way of doing business is, haywire. But I've always forged my own way. Okay? And it's not always my own way because somebody else has tried something. And when I'm doing research on something, I'm looking for things where people have tried it and failed, and why did they fail? And if I can learn from that before I get started, that's a plus. But, with the online parts business, there were 2 years of no money coming in while I built that. And then to have ones just new to eBay start taking my listings and copying it word for word, photo, titles. And the only thing that was different was price, that they had priced it like $1 cheaper or 20 cents cheaper. If I were to have that situation happen again, I would say good riddance to those customers that took it for cheaper, because those are the ones that you don't want to deal with. Honest to God. On that note, you guys have a great Wednesday, and we'll see you here bright and early tomorrow morning for another episode of The Weekday. Put in the comments what your thoughts are on it.